Okay, hello. I just finished watching Game of Thrones season 1, so I don't know anything that happens after it. I'd always wanted to read the books first because I heard of them before the TV show I think even existed. I had actually read part of the first one, so it's kind of weird. I was like actually surprised that the story in the show matched what I'd read. I sometimes worry when I read things, am I following this properly? But it seemed I'd followed it reasonably well. So yeah, before I spoil it, I guess just to if you haven't seen it, the way I would summarize it, I think the story is excellent, really, really good. Lots of interesting characters. There's a lot of characters, and I think they're very well developed. I really like the dialogue and a lot of the lines they say. I like the overall world that it creates. I'm not as huge a fan of the directing or the music. The music is nice. It keeps coming in my mind because you keep hearing it. Because I watched these 10 episodes pretty quickly because I guess that's one of the strengths. The story just keeps moving. So many things happen. There's a lot of twists and turns. Like a lot of most episodes have at least one or two deaths, including significant deaths where relatively main characters can end up getting killed. So there seems to be a lot of change over time, with characters. So you never know who's going to survive or be killed or be threatened and just get by or be injured in some way. Like the violence is brutal as well, more in a psychological way. So if you've seen like the Saw movies as an example, or certain other movies, they're gory or they're violent and they might be a bit disturbing, but they're not completely realistic. It's like what the Joker said in The Dark Knight. You want to know why I use a knife? A gun's too. I'm just trying to sort of do. A gun's too fast. I like to savor all the little emotions. People show you in their final moments, people show you who they really are. That concept, that it's terrifying to think about, but that's when your life's being threatened. You don't just necessarily scream and yell. You could be very emotional, and that doesn't always get captured, I think. And there can be kind of a panic and a fear. This show I think captures a bit more of that, and also just some of the frivolousness of it. I don't know how to. I don't want to go into details, I guess, but yeah, some of it's just kind of scary. Real violence is not always as colorful or as dramatic as it's made to look in movies. It's sometimes just kind of awkward and ugly and just sudden. Yeah, and just kind of psychologically scary. Just the idea of pain, and then you're dead. You've died so quickly. I like the casting overall a lot. I don't know that many of the actors. In a way, that's good. I think most of them are very good in their roles. They really capture because the characters are good. So yeah, the acting and the casting. Sean Bean, I think, is excellent. He just seems so tired and like there's this huge burden on him, like this huge weight that he's constantly carrying. I think he's excellent in it. Yeah, I don't know how else to describe it. At times, like I don't know, did he turn up drunk to the set? I'm just sort of joking, like, but it just seems like I assume he's just good at acting. He just has this sort of weight on him. I guess maybe not drunk, but something like he's always thinking about something else. You see, and I like his character because he seems like such a good, strong person, caring, that's always weighing up things. Honor versus duty, family. That seems to be their code. I forget the order, whatever. But in my opinion, the directing is not special. There's nothing overly special about the way it's directed. It's good at being uncompromising. HBO just seems to have such a good track record. The Wire, Game of Thrones, Curb Your Enthusiasm, The Sopranos. I don't know why I'm saying it like that. Probably a bunch of other shows, but there's violence, there's sex scenes. It's all relevant to the story though, and the subject matter. It's not all politically correct. You feel like they can just do anything, and it's all about the story and the ideas. And this show does that. So in that sense, it's good. But yeah, just the style of it as well. Like, obviously the sets and costumes are really good, but it almost reminds me of a musical. You would never, in my opinion, watch a musical for acting, okay? It's not their strength. And even for directing, I think they're just too artificial. You always get this sense of like everyone's just standing and even if you're watching like Oliver or Annie or I don't know, something where there's orphans or poor people, they're wearing beautiful costumes that look poor. They never look like actual poor people, if you know what I mean. They're just wearing poor costumes, but they still dance and point their toes and they all gather and they're all in the right. It just feels a little bit like that with this show, where it seems like everyone's got the right costumes. They look perfect the way they're meant to. None of it quite feels real to me. It doesn't feel like a real place. And also the locations, style-wise, doesn't feel that original. It just feels like a generic medieval, okay, places and locations. You know what I mean? I really like the characters and the sets and all of that are good, and the tension, that it's not badly directed. It's just nothing special, and I feel like that's something lacking. It doesn't have its own style or impetus the way Star Wars has its own universe, and The Lord of the Rings has its own thing, and even Raiders of the Lost, like Indiana Jones movies. That's the other thing. The music's alright, it works, but it's not special. Like, I don't remember that character has a theme and that character has a theme. There's just maybe 2 or 3 bits of music that I kind of recognize that get used here and there, but I haven't made any connections. And I'm reasonably good with music with that. So that's just slightly disappointing. But yeah, don't just listen to me. It's probably one of the most addictive shows, because I was getting into it because you're just curious what's going to happen next, what's going to happen. You get invested in the characters. You want to see where they're going, where is this line going. Because it's got, sex scenes and nudity and other kind of crazy violent things. Like, it makes it more of an interesting, almost like we have this morbid curiosity, or even perverseness to all people, where there's something about that, just seeing people doing daring, risky, exciting, different things, whether it's sexual or violent or some kind of other conflict, or trying to gain power. Power's a big theme. Good versus evil, and people trying to manipulate each other. It's addictive to watch that kind of stuff and to follow it, see where it goes, whether it goes well or not. You're always hoping a certain, I guess it's not so much clear-cut good and bad characters, but there tends to be characters you like and characters you dislike or hate, and other characters maybe in between. And you want things to turn out well for them, for the good ones, and bad for the others, but it doesn't always go the way you want. So there's a lot of, yes, that's good, and no, oh my god, no. So anyway, alright, I'm going to start spoiling it, if that's alright. So, and it's a very popular show, so you've probably heard how much people like it, so I'd recommend seeing it, see what you think. I was also going to comment, like, the Harry Potter movies, from the 4th one onwards, I felt started to look more generic. And it's just like a lot of these covers for movies, TV shows and things these days just look really photoshopped, and even if they look gritty, they're kind of black and white. They're just not black and white, but not as much color. Like, even, I mean, okay, I think this looks kind of cool, but it doesn't look completely real. Like, the white in the background is unnatural. I like other movies, like when I see Superman, the 1978 movie, or Tim Burton's Batman and Batman Returns. They're stylized, but like they look like, what am I trying to say? They look real. They don't look manipulated like with computers, or like where the colors have been completely changed or adjusted, or way too much makeup and adjustments. It just feels real, like you could actually touch the stuff, like it's actually there. It's not just made up. I don't know if that makes sense, what I'm saying. The early Harry Potter movies have a sense of magic and fantasy to them, but the later ones just feel like they're just wearing casual, normal clothes, and they're always made up to look, you know, tired or injured and dirty. It's never convincing to me. So I don't know if other people relate to that. I feel like that's happened with a lot of movies. This generic look. Like, I haven't seen Divergent or The Hunger Games or The Maze Runner, for example, but from trailers they all look the same. There's nothing special. Something like the Dark City has a unique look to it. Nolan's Batman trilogy has a slightly different look to it. You can recognize the city that he creates. It's mostly they're shot in Chicago, although maybe the second one's shot in Chicago. But anyway, back to Game of Thrones. So let's see. Let's get into some of the plot points. A comment on the ending stuff. So this spoils it. I can't believe they killed Sean Bean. I felt terrible about that. I mean, it's it's funny because he dies in like everything. It's a famous sort of ongoing meme. But yeah, I felt terrible. He was maybe my favorite character, or he seemed like the good guy, one of the main characters, and then it's so terrifying. I'm excited to see what happens next, but it's scary. Like, this King Joffrey, this little brat, blonde kid that's like, I don't know, 14, I don't know what his age is meant to be. He's such a spoilt little kid, cowardly, angry, and to have him become the king wrongfully. That's the other thing, is how smart they were about betraying at the right time in the right way. And you just think it seems so obvious in retrospect how easily they did it, and the sense I didn't have a proper sense of danger of that happening. I didn't think of that. Sean Bean just seems to be doing the right thing, and then in retrospect it makes him look really naive that he didn't take more care or anticipate this and do something in advance to prevent it or to protect himself. And it's brutal. The emotions evolve. So I think that part is good in terms of, again, the acting and the reactions. His daughter begs for his life. That scene was really well done, where he gets, you don't want it to happen, and it's the way it's done. It doesn't like show everything, but it really builds up. And again, it's brutal. It's really terrifying. It's one of the best examples in anything I've seen of evil winning. One of the darkest things I've seen. So this little brat becomes king and says, it's like a huge twist. You think, okay, he's decided, he's strong. He's a soldier. He was willing to die, and he was going to just tell the truth. But he decided, I want to look after my daughters, or for them, I'm going to lie and say that I betrayed the king or whatever, which is a lie. And then this little brat decides, my mum said we should send you here, and your daughter pled for your life, but they have the soft hearts of women, and I'm gonna have you killed. And it just orders him to be killed, and it's just the panic. It captures those emotions really well, but it's hard to stomach. The daughter then just crying and saying no, screaming, and then just she ends up fainting later. It seems very realistic. And the other daughter, I got excited because she had a little knife, and I was like, oh, what's gonna happen? I'm so trained to watch like Hollywood movies and exciting things, and there's always this tension, but there's always the good guys win. So I thought she's gonna run up, pull out the sword, and kill the king, and then Sean's gonna like pull out a sword and fight, and they're gonna run away, and it's like they live to, and it's like, no, that doesn't happen. The girl gets stopped. They keep calling her a boy. I like her character, Arya. I'm getting used to all the names. But yeah, that scene, that part was really well done. When Viserys, is that his name, gets killed, that was brutal. Crown for a king, and they pause the gold. Oh, that was terrifying. When the gauntlet, when they're running, or whatever it's called, jousting, they're running at each other, and I guess by accident the mountain, whatever, bumps the guy. That terrifies me, because it's just sort of randomly happens. The guy falls off. It didn't look that bad, but it's just a bit of a chip of wood, and then he's on the ground, can't breathe, and then blood's coming up, choke. What terrifies me is people watching just really closely. You could be 5 meters away, or even closer, 10 meters away, and you're breathing the air, and it's a nice cool morning or whatever time, and you feel completely fine. You might actually feel quite good, and then there's this person in agony, dying in the last few seconds of their life, just from this sharp thing going into their neck. In awful pain, nothing they could do, and just, you can hear a little bit of noise. That terrifies me. Just that the way, we're always so close to just this brutal death that can occur. And there's a lot of little things like that. In terms of story, I really like how it develops the characters. You really sense what they feel and think. None of it feels cliched. None of them feel like just little character cutouts. It's all defined based on, one of the biggest themes I think is power. So you can have characters that are actually quite similar, but one of them is a king, whereas another one is not a king. And that creates this imbalance, and that's what makes it interesting. And what psychological effect does it have if you're a king? To what degree do you use that power, and for what purpose? And then are there other people trying to become the king, or are they being nice to the king because they care about him, or just because he's the king and they want to be on his good side? And not just obviously for the king, but for all the other people and all the other positions they've got. So for example, this little midget who is a Lannister, Tyrion Lannister or whatever, he has power in a way because he's got money, so he's able to get out of situations using that. Whereas someone else who was a midget would just be poor; they'd have nothing. So that's a big theme of it: the power that people have and the struggle, the way it changes over time. Those threats of like losing a connection. If we do this, you'll never be able to come here again. Some of the threats they make to each other, like, if you raise a hand to me again, that'll be the last time you have hands. It's like, oh, let's cut his little dick off and feed it to him or something. It's really messed up things every single episode. The part where Bran sees two of them having sex and then they just push him off and you think, Jesus, I was like, that kid, I got the impression he's gonna be a main character, and like in the second episode just gets pushed off, and I'm like, oh, okay, he's gone. But then it turns out he's severely injured. I would say that's almost a cliche when characters survive, but not in this case, because most of the characters do die. So it's relatively rare. You can have a one-off where a character survives something that seems like it should have been fatal. That can happen. It's pretty realistic and reasonable. You could survive, and it seems like he can't use his legs again, but we'll have to wait and see. Let's see. Yeah, Jaime Lannister seems so confident and he's a very handsome man, and that's the other thing I like. There's a lot of the cocky dialogue between them where they're outdoing each other, like in terms of being smart and making reference. Like they say some really harsh things. That seems to be one of the big insults. I don't always feel like I completely relate to it. Doesn't seem like it would bother me as much. But they, insult someone's, say your father died trying to do this and he just got killed by this. Like, family seems to really offend people. Like if you insult parents or brothers, or especially people that have died, close ones, loved ones that have passed away, it's so insensitive, and that happens a fair bit in the show. So yeah, I still think the strength is the story and the characters, and I was going to say the pacing I think is very good. The plot's always moving and developing, and you never quite feel like you know exactly where it's going. Even if you could sense certain characters, you get what they want, so you're hoping they'll develop there. I really liked Arya'S sword lessons. I thought that was very cool with the dance, what they call it, dancing lessons. The way the guy's training her, and boom, dead, boom, dead, dead, and just the words of wisdom he gives her. It's a very typical type of thing in these kinds of movies. There's so many movies where there's someone training a younger Padawan or whatever you want to call them. But I think they're really well done. I really like the actor playing that instructor. I think he was really good. There's just always this mix of humor and sort of wisdom and sort of almost being mean to the learner, but in a sense, in a way that's getting them to click onto new ideas and to push themselves. A bit like when in Batman Begins, when Bruce Wayne arrives, they tell him to bring a rose and climb up this mountain, and he gets there. And then he's like, they're like, are you ready to begin? And he's like, I can barely stand. And then they just attack him. Liam Neeson just kicks him and says, death does not wait. And then goes, and then finally he defends himself. And it's like, that's the whole point. Even if you've been climbing a mountain, you have to be ready to defend yourself, to fight. That's it. There's no waiting and, let's have a break. So, again, in terms of power, some of the actors just seem really good at capturing that, just that they're very quiet and carefully spoken. And in many ways, that's more intimidating. It's something I'm trying to develop as a teacher. It's an interesting thing being a teacher. I always used to find, it's impossible. It's one of me and, about 30 kids. Even if they're kids, they have the power because there's 30 of them. They can just make noise. They can do it's very hard to keep track of all of them, but you have to come up with all of these psychological things you have to believe in your power as a teacher, as being in charge. It's something I'm working on, but I've definitely developed some skill at it. I always feel amazing, like when there's a noisy class, if I'm able to do whatever particular things, whether it's simply looking or asking one student to stand up and not saying much else and just sensing their reaction, and then decide, you pursue it at the right time when you need to, and just when you can get a whole class to be quiet, it feels really good. I never like to suppress kids or anything, but it is this interesting thing of what is power. Often it's the threat of something else. If you don't do what I say, this will happen, like an inevitable consequence. A bit like with the Lannisters, they've got the Lannister always pays their dues. So there's this promise that you will get rewarded if you help them in certain cases. And yeah, with others it may be, if you don't do this, I will kill you. And they may have a reputation for they always do what they say. There's some messed up scenes with this woman and her son who's like still breastfeeding. He looks like he's 10 or 12, something like that. That's kind of messed up. I also like Tywin Lannister, the guy. He's the bad guy from Last Action Hero. I think one of his eyes is like a bit lazy. He has a intensity to him that I think is cool. And there's a part where he's just having a conversation, cutting up like a boar or a horse or something. Yeah, there's a lot of violence. Like when the horse's head basically gets cut off by the mountain. I don't know where he did that. Something about one of the horses was in heat. Maybe that was a disadvantage. There's another scene where there's like these two women in the back, and I've got to say, like some of the, like nudity's alright. Some of the women are quite attractive, but it can be. There's this thing with mixing things, like if you're seeing something that's sexual, like erotic, and then there's food, like to me that's the wrong mix. Then I'm gonna be hungry, but then like you're turned on, which they're at odds with each other. So like certain foods also don't mix together well. May depend on the person's opinion. But yeah, there was like a scene in particular where there's these two women just basically, going at it, lesbians, making sounds, and this guy's trying to say these, I guess monologue. Anyway, but he's explaining this stuff, and it was very hard to follow because of what else was going on. And it was just, maybe there was a bit of a, I like when movies have things in parallel and there's I don't know, like the energy adds together, they complement each other well. Maybe there was some relevance in that case, but I don't know, it just felt a bit distracting. Not completely complaining, but I felt stupid. I was like, I'm really, really trying to follow the story and get into it and follow every little bit, because that's always been my weakness. So I actually feel really proud of myself that I know who Bran is, the little boy. I know who Rob is, this other Rob Stark. Is it Eddard Stark or something like that? The king, I forgot his name, and then the new king Joffrey, and there's Jaime Lannister. There's another woman who's a Lannister. Okay, maybe I'm not following it that well. But Daenerys, Viserys, the Dothraki, and the Khal Drogo, the Khaleesi, and I figured out, so Khal must be king and Khaleesi means queen. Just gradually getting the hang of the story, and it's definitely seems to be leading towards more exciting things later on. So I've only seen season 1, and yeah, there was a part recently where it was like the King of the North, the King of the North. I really like Jon Snow as well, who's up where the wall is. There's little things that I don't like with some of the elements of the story, but yeah, just overall, it's okay. So I really like it because it's so brutal and the story just keeps moving. And I still think power is one of the best themes to use in a story. Like The Godfather, a lot of mafia movies, a lot of crime movies, a lot of the best movies, power is a major theme. You have someone ascending from low to go high up, however they do it, whether it's through lying or deception or hard work and just patience. But that creates a lot of tension when there's someone who knows something that the other doesn't, or they have a certain kind of power or ability and the other doesn't, or maybe they have different kinds of attributes that can help them, and then there's a clash. That's what a lot of the story revolves around, is everyone has what they want and what they want to get, and then there's how much risk they're willing to take, and what are the consequences going to be, and who's going to come out on top in the end, and you never quite know. So that keeps it exciting. In that sense, it feels realistic, and it's exciting to see where it goes. So yeah, just the characters, that's probably the best thing about it, and just the constantly moving plot and story. Anyway, I think I'll leave it there. I'm excited to see some more. Directing and music are okay, but just not special, and just in my opinion, they're not. That could take it to the next level where I would absolutely love it, because it feels a little bit generic, like just okay, general medieval stuff. But yeah, like I said, great characters, that's the strength. Alright, bye for now. Thanks for watching.